we have Prime Minister. He has the power to decide what to do in the country, but the people don't trust him. Prime Minister in Japan got changed over and over. He's supposed to be in charge of his job, like 4 years, but many of them, especially for recently, they got changed just within 1 year or 2 years, even in a few months. The problem is in the people. They are expecting too much on him. Although we are having a lot of problems, like we had a tsunami, and we are working on recovering from it. And also we are having problem with Russia. We are having a territory in the north part of Japan, and Russia also wants that territory. We vote for him.
You vote?
Yeah.
Who has the power to vote in Japan?
Our legal age is 20. There are less and less people go to vote because they are not interested in political matters. There's no restriction, but we haven't had any female ones.
We found that political history might play a role in gender selection. If the Prime Minister were to be female, then it would be a deviation from norm, and the country's political history would forever be changed.
We have different ways between women and men. We have a concept that women should be like a woman, ladylike, and men should be strong and tough like a man. Our language is very gendered. It is kind of spread out, most people in average level, but there are some homeless people. The government doesn't give enough opportunity to for them to get jobs.
Military governments. We had one like for 17 years, and that military government was toppled down by another guerrilla fighters who are holding office right now.
Chapter 3, page 117 states, power is pervasive and plays an enormous, often hidden role in intercultural communications. This may demonstrate why Ethiopia's source of power, which is the military, could be the reason it is underdeveloped and poor compared to other developed democratic countries.
They know that they have the power. They don't worry about persuading the people. You know, they just force their ideas into the system. It's not a rational way of ruling. It's not democratic kind of government. It's just because they are holding the arms. People have the right to vote, but at the end of the day, elections are rigged, and you cannot say that whoever gets the most vote takes over office. People who are right now in power, they constitute for approximately 6% of the total population. If you take the ethnic group I come from, it constitutes for 30% of the total population.
Okay.
But they are not assuming any meaningful power. I think with this current government, you see some middle class emerging, but you know, it's nothing that you can compare to the American system. The majority of the people are those who live on subsistence agriculture, so they're very poor.
Chapter 3, page 103, power distance, explains, Ethiopia may demonstrate a high power distance due to its hierarchy in power and military obtained power. There is a high level of power difference between government and the people in Ethiopia.
My country is a male-dominated country. The female have no place in politics. They work hard, but they don't have rights over even their properties.
Chapter 3, page 103, introduces the two-dimensional masculinity-femininity value. It refers to how gender roles are valued and the degree to which cultures have masculine values or feminine values. Ethiopia highly demonstrates a masculine value within its culture. We met with Russia several times over the semester in hopes of how they describe power dynamics within Russia. One fact we learned was that 80% of Russian high school students attend college after graduation. They have less disparity than the United States when it comes to who receives a higher education. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the U.S. percentage hovers around 68% of high school graduates who attend college in the United States. Just like in the United States, the Russian students said they were allowed to vote at the age of 18. However, none of them were able to answer what type of government they had. Currently, their parliament is led by Vladimir Putin, the Russian president. When asked about how money influences their politics, many students were hesitant to answer. Some passed the microphone quickly in what appeared to be an attempt to avoid the question. Others did not want to answer at all. They whispered to one another in low, serious tones. However, eventually the student's professor told us that money did play a major role in their political system. Considering their brief, evasive response, we followed up by asking if there was censorship in Russia. Again, they were hesitant to answer. However, after a few seconds, their professor replied by saying, technically there is no censorship in Russia. However, everyone knows there is some form of it. Russians go to the internet if they want uncensored clips or media sources. There appeared to be strong power dynamics based on the Russian students' and professors' responses. Powers from above discourage those with less power from speaking ill of the government. Although there was never any mention of punishment for doing so, the students' hesitant and hushed voices when answering the questions could be interpreted as fearfulness of those in power.
Soon after the meetings with Russia, we also began meeting with Turkey. From conversations that we had with them, we learned that Turkey operates under a democratic system, with the liberal AKP party in power, and they're led by a prime minister. We also learned that Turkey is very male-centric, with husbands having notably more power than wives. Although this was not mentioned, in Turkish society, it's currently illegal to criticize the military. Calling the Armenian genocide a genocide is also illegal, despite the fact that thousands of Armenians died at the hands of the Ottoman Empire in the early 1900s. As shown, legally implemented censorship plays a heavy role in Turkish society, protecting those in power from potentially career-threatening criticisms.
For Costa Rica, we didn't have time to ask the questions we'd hoped for, but we did manage to make some observations about stereotypes and nonverbal communication. The Costa Rican professor mentioned that Costa Ricans are often stereotyped as very obliging to others. Though this is merely a stereotype, it seemed to hold some truth. They spoke in English to us, and we didn't speak in Spanish to them. They also prepared the answers to our questions ahead of time, and created a system for how they would present them. Considering how thought and work-intensive these actions were, it was apparent that Costa Rican students and the professor were being very obliging to us, putting us in a position of power. The Costa Rican professor further communicated stereotypes held by Costa Ricans about Americans. One such stereotype is that all Americans are wealthy. Again, this communicates that Americans are in a position of power, whether or not this is actually true. Regarding nonverbal communication, the Costa Rican students mentioned that big cars are a sign of wealth and status in Costa Rica. Although this is not an explicit statement of power, it nonverbally communicates a position above those with smaller cars and less power. Through our research, we found that power dynamics exist within all the various cultures we interviewed. Often, we found similarities with a smaller, elite group holding most of the power and privilege alongside a larger, less powerful majority group. Among those we interviewed, there were discrepancies regarding how individuals came to be part of either the power-holding group or the less powerful majority. Some believed that statuses such as race and gender played a large part in socioeconomic status and consequently power. Others argued that disparities in power distribution were results of historical struggles and contexts. Still, one argued that socioeconomic position was solely dependent on a person's willingness to put in work and strive for more powerful positions within societies. Also, we found that the level of power distance varied between cultures depending on how those interviewed described unequal distribution of power.